2 reasons why UConn is going on an elite recruit pursuit. You're locked on UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A little housekeeping. I got the clicker going about love the podcast, subscribe now. So if you love the podcast, YouTube support has been amazing. I'd love to have all my subscribers download the audio version wherever you get your podcast. It's also equally as important for helping the channel grow and the Locked On audience grows. So if you can do me 2 quick favors, first click that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen, then head over to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, hit that follow button. This way you'll never miss a moment of Locked On UConn. I can't tell you how much your support means to me. It's everything. If you're tuning in from your car, once you finish the show, please drop us a 5-star review. Good reviews trigger referrals for similar shows where we can get some new audience members who are interested in more UConn content. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. 2 reasons Dan Hurley and his staff are going on an elite recruit pursuit. Reason number 1, they've doubled down on their Fab 5 class of last year. So what does that mean? If any of those guys, or any 2 of those 4 remaining, don't get significant run, they're going to transfer. There's no bones about it. I don't care about how much the culture has been created. I don't care how much fun they had watching and working behind the scenes and working their tails off. They want to play and show their skills because the ultimate goal, if you're playing at this level, is to get to the next level, whatever that means for you, whether that means you're a lottery pick like our guys Donovan Clayton or Steph Castle, whether you're a borderline second-round pick like Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer. Either way, the goal is to continue to play basketball at a professional level. Culture is one thing. I had someone famously in a staff meeting say, culture is fantastic. I love working here, but culture doesn't pay my bills. And ultimately, culture doesn't pay the bills in terms of playing time at UConn. Having a great work ethic or playing environment is wonderful, but if you're not actively a part of that culture outwardly, you need to go someplace where you can showcase your talents. And we saw a little bit of that. I mean, Apostolos Romelu went to Richmond. Wish him the best. I thought that's a great decision for him. So they've convinced a lot of kids to stick around for this year. So these kids are expecting to play basketball. Reason number 2. This is the biggest reason of them all. They just won back-to-back titles. In case I didn't have to, if you're listening to this, you are a pretty much an everydayer or someone that is very interested in UConn basketball or college basketball as a whole. In case you were living under a rock, UConn is the basketball capital of the world. When will UConn ever have this much juice again? I love this team that they have back. I can't predict the future. And yes, I think we're poised for another title run. But in the short attention ADD world, back-to-back titles means something. And in 5 years, it won't to this crazy society. It will to us UConn fans, but to the outward world, turning down the Lakers in Kentucky means something. All of that matters right now. So the phrase strike while the iron is hot has never been more apropos. You are hot right now, Dan Hurley. Your staff is hot. Both of your assistants, including Tom, or actually see all 3 of them, including Tom Moore, could get jobs right now at a high mid-major or low major level easily. And honestly, probably we just saw JJ Redick get a job having a podcast. So I think Kamani Young could easily be the head coach at, I'm going to use a random team, Minnesota. And Luke Murray could be the head coach at Georgetown right now. In the snap of a finger, they'd be a better team because these guys are program builders as well. So we have the best staff in the country. You have to capitalize on that and go for these elite recruits. None of what I'm saying is ever going to make Dan Hurley and his staff sacrifice their culture building. So to be clear, the big recruits are I would say 4-star recruits and above. So if we're talking AJ DeBonsa, if we're talking Malik Thomas, the 5-star, if we're talking Caden Lewis, and some other folks, let's pull up. We're doing a live show on YouTube. So let's pull up some of these lists. Like any of these guys that they're going after, the Liam McNeelys of the world, obviously on our team this year, I think that would be considered, a big-time recruit. But if you're talking about Braylon Mullins, who's also on their radar but not a high priority, he's taking some official visits. I know Malik Thomas, I think Dave Borges was kind enough to join the show on yesterday, talked about how Malik Thomas is starting his visit yesterday and will finish to Friday. So he's on campus as we speak. So we're doing some elite recruiting pursuing as we are talking about this show today. So this whole idea that we have to, find the diamonds in the rough. You don't always have to get, I want to say lucky, but see something in a 3 or 4-star recruit and develop him. Sometimes a guy comes in and he's actually that good to start, and he's that good at 17 years old. And some of the guys I'm talking about, let's pull up these rankings right now. Player rankings so like a guy like AJ DeBonsa. I feel like I'm saying his name wrong because I'll get crap about it later. We obviously are in on a Malik Thomas, a Caden Lewis. There's another one I'm missing that is taking an official visit shortly. Chris Seanock, the 6'10 power forward out of Link Academy, New Orleans, Louisiana. Link Academy is a great preparatory school in Missouri, in Kansas City area. So they're like an absolute factory for high major, high impact players at the college level. I thought I saw some folks saying about Caden Boozer, not the higher ranked, the Boozer twins, but the point guard, the 6'3", a guy there. Let's see. There was another name that I had on the list here. Nicola Bundalo. I also know he's getting some interest, but he's more of a Midwestern kid. There's a lot of Midwestern kids coming out of Ohio that he is, or teams that he's looking at, Ohio State, Notre Dame, things like that. So the idea, though, with recruiting is I want to hammer home this thought process 100%. They are going for some 5-stars and 4-stars without a doubt. Will they fill out their roster with some projects? Maybe. But all you have to do is take a look at our second segment, which is talking about our roster and what I'm excited about from all of these guys. And if you look at them, let's pull up this roster as we speak right now. Every one of these players is at minimum a 3-star or above. I think we only had one 3-star out of high school, and that was Aiden Mahaney. He's a pretty damn good player right now, too. Terrace Reed was a 4 or 5-star. Isaiah Abraham, 4-star. Ahmad Noel, 4-5-ish, because he was just below a McDonald's All-American. Liam McNeely, a 5-star. All of the freshmen or the sophomores that we return, Singari, Ross, Stort, Solo Ball, all 4-stars. Hassan Diarra was a 4-star. Samson Johnson, 4 or 5-star. Alex Caravan, 4-star. So are they a 5-star former 2012 Kentucky team that won a national championship? No, but we don't need that. We have our coaching that is going to help develop, and these guys are proven, high, talented players. We're going to talk about each one of those guys I just mentioned and what I'm excited about coming up after this. Hey everyone, it's Mark Sinetto here. I've been using GameTime to score some amazing deals on MLB tickets, and I've got to share my experience with you. Browsing through the GameTime app, it's a breeze. I'm looking at some high-profile matchups and deals that are fantastic. I was just up in New York, so we kind of looked at some Yankees tickets, Mets tickets up there just to kind of see what it was about. Didn't end up going to a game, but we found tickets for some upcoming games that are unbeatable in price-wise. All thanks to the last-minute tickets and flash deals. My favorite part, the panoramic seat views. It's game-changing to see exactly where you'll be sitting before you buy. Plus, their all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. With GameTime, the lowest price guarantee. If you find a better price, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. You take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app on your phone, Create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege. Spell it out for $20 off. Download GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Okay, we don't have a overlay for this, but this is a local ad for the Fresh Lab. Ryan Gresh, a major contributor to the men's and women's basketball team. So just to give you that context, did you know that the same things that fuel the best athletes in the world can still help the rest of us? Just ask Cam Spencer, who does every little thing he can to dial in his wellness, reduce inflammation in his body, and make sure he's eating foods that fuel him. And he does that with the help of one of Connecticut's best wellness brands. Here's what he says about it. I choose to partner with the Feelgood Lab to elevate my performance, improve my health, and become more educated on my nutrition. Since we started working together, all of those goals have been reached. Now I'm continuing to find ways to get better with the Feelgood team, and I'm very grateful for our partnership. In fact, that is exactly why I partnered with Ryan in the Feelgood Lab. Plant-based pain relief and recovery tools, the highest quality supplements, and an at-home diagnostic test that measures what foods in my body actually trigger inflammation. Plus, they are an official partner of UConn basketball. I'm in my third week of my wellness journey, and so far, I feel better than ever. Y'all, use code CAMSPENCER for 12% off your order, and 10% of that donation goes to bleeding. 10% of that order goes to a donation for Bleeding Blue for Good. You guys, all the UConn Nation knows what Bleeding Blue for Good does. It helps for our NIL collective. So go get your wellness products at the Feelgood Lab. Use that Cam Spencer code and get 12% off your order. Okay. All right. So let's talk about roster construction. Think about what they've done in the past. Let's just think about what they lost. They lost Donovan Clingan. They lost Cam Spencer, Tristan Newton, and why am I blanking? Stephon Castle. So they were able to retain Alex Caravan. They were able to retain Hassan Diarra for Hassan for his fifth year. Samson Johnson stuck around. I heard Dan Hurley on a podcast talking about how he was trying to up his weight from, I believe, 225 to 240, something in that range. So muscled up Samson Johnson is kind of a scary thought to add to that quickness. I'm not yawning. Actually, that was a little bit of a yawn. So if you're joining us for the first time, that's the first yawn I've had in about 3 different podcasts. So I've been doing a lot of work today, so I apologize there. But then we go into our Fab Five minus Steph Castle. You got your solo ball, Jalen Stort, Jaden Ross, Yusef Singari. Then you have your incoming transfers, Terrace Reed Jr., 6'10", bruiser from Michigan. Great footwork. Very similar to another UConn legend, Adama Sanogo. Aiden Mahaney, who I am super excited about, and we're going to talk about in segment 3 of the program. I love his game. He brings a total edge to this team that we really haven't. I wouldn't say we haven't had, but it's. I don't want to pigeonhole someone, but he does a lot of things like Tristan and Cam did last year. And then you have our when I look at the 3 freshmen as wild cards. Anything you get from freshmen, in my opinion, is like gravy. Because if we didn't have Liam McNeely, Ahmad Noel, and Isaiah Abraham, I think it's a pretty damn good squad with Aiden, Terrace, Yusef, Jaden, Jalen, Solo, Alex, Samson, and Hassan. Those guys are all going to be contributors. So then if you have 2 contributors as freshmen, I'm just using that. I don't know which 2 it's going to be. Likely going to be Liam McNeely and Ahmad Noel. Don't know much about Isaiah Abraham and his game. I know how smooth he is. I know how much they're excited about his game, his length, similar to Jaden Ross. So again, the excitement around this team is almost palpable. I am ready to run through a brick wall. I can't believe we have to wait almost 4.5 months or so for basically the first game of the year. What I want to tell you about what I think is great about every one of these guys is we'll go with our returning guys first. Alex Caravan. What doesn't he do well? Great shooter, great teammate, good underrated defender. How many block shots did he have in the title game? How many block shots has he had in games where you think he's not going to be on the ball, and it's like a perfect block shot? I'm not talking like he's going up and swatting it like LeBron or a Samson Johnson coming out of nowhere and blocking it away. Caravan times it perfectly. Love that in his game. His intangibles are fantastic. Samson, incredible rim runner. Samson Johnson does need to improve on his free throw shooting, but I thought that got better at the end of the year. Also, the biggest knock on Samson, I think, that people are having is he doesn't rebound that well. Well, a lot of that is based off of how much they spread people out, and also the guards like Cam, like Tristan, they come down and grab rebounds and almost steal 3 or 4 rebounds a game from the bigs. I think that's also why you saw Samson and Donovan under 10 rebounds a game. A lot of teams don't have their guards do that. They have their guards go out for outlet passes, but we ran a totally different offense where it was more strategic in that respect. Then you have Hassan Diarra, bulldog on the defensive end, was a plus 3-point shooter this year. I think that continues, and I only think his game improves knowing that he's kind of the lead guard of this team. I think you could put Aiden Mahaney in that mix too, but knowing that Hassan has been here for 2 national championships, pretty damn good to have a guy that's your starting point guard who's coming off back-to-back national champions. Probably the guy that I'm most excited about is Solo Ball from the Fab Four left over. I know you can say the same thing about Jalen Stewart. You can flip a coin on either of those guys, but I think Solo, one of my biggest things, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, is he had this incredible growth spurt, I believe his freshman or sophomore year of high school, where he was only 5'5", and then on top, and then he's all of a sudden he made this growth spurt to where he is now almost 6'4". So the mentality is still there. He still plays like he's 5'5" and a short guard, and is physically gifted, has a wingspan of 6'10". Can jump through the roof. I think Solo is going to be a plus player for us this year. He showed it in stretches this year, and I think he's going to get an amazing run this year. Jalen Stewart also showed some obviously some stretches there. I think you're going to have, he's a 3-level scorer. I think you're going to see improved defensive prowess from him. You saw some incredible blocks in the NCAA tournament. Then you go Jaden Ross, who I think Jaden Ross can be a very similar player to what Jalen Stewart was this year. I hope Jaden gets run this year. I really do, because if not, I think he'd be one of the guys that transfers. I really don't want him to. From everything we heard from Dave Borges, from everything we read about, he's a great kid, great mindset. Plus, I love incredible fro. Reminds me of like Dr. J in the ABA. Gotta love Jaden. I hope he has an incredible season this year. And I really think, again, another 3-level scorer that can help us really kind of have that depth that we're looking for. Yusuf Singari, I don't know about Yusuf. I think he's a fantastic athlete. I think if they use the center position as a 3-headed monster with Samson and Terrace, he can get some run. But that's, to me, he's one of the biggest questions in the front court. And I think that's one of the reasons why I get questions all the time about, do you think we need another power forward? And maybe they add someone that gives them a little muscle. I don't think they will, to be completely fair. I think this roster is the roster. And that's why I actually think Yusuf is going to get 5 to 10 minutes a game somewhere, somehow. And then let's go into our transfers. Terrace Reed Jr. is going to really, I think he's going to surprise a ton of people. If you looked at the transfer portal numbers, he was like the 30th or 40th ranked transfer portal kid. But he was a top 30 recruit as a freshman. So what does that tell you? Did he get worse as the competition get better, or as the competition got better from high school to college? That's plausible, right? Or was he put in a situation where, and no disrespect to Juwan Howard, I think he was a phenomenal basketball player, but Juwan Howard was not a good college basketball coach. His staff was not a good developmental staff. So now he's going from probably one of the worst teams in the Big Ten in terms of development process to now one of the best, if not the best program in the country in terms of developing. We have the best staff in the country, and they've developed some pretty good players. I mean, think about where Tristan Newton was when he came over from East Carolina, and all of a sudden now he's on the precipice of playing in the NBA. I don't think anyone that watched Tristan Newton play at ECU thought that was going to happen. And then I went back and looked at some of my YouTube clips from a while back, just kind of doing some housekeeping. When we were doing the Kobe Brea versus Aiden Mahaney stuff, Aiden Mahaney to me always stood out as a Dan Hurley guy because he's not perfect. And I feel like they feel like there's so much more meat on the bones with Aiden Mahaney. And I think they're going to get it out of him. I think he definitely needs to gain some weight in terms of being more physical and using his body in the way Cam did. And I think he's going to look at film, get that intensity from these guys to really show what type of player he can be. He wants to play at the next level, and he's here to play at the next level. He just came off a season where he averaged about 14 points a game, if not, I think it's close to 15. And now he's coming to a back-to-back national champion team where they're going to need that scoring. We lost Cam Spencer's 15 points. We lost Tristan Newton's 17 points a game. So they're going to need Aiden to step up and be that double-digit score. Then now we go to what I consider our wild cards. I think the only sure thing in this respect is Liam McNeely coming in with the pedigree of a 5-star recruit, 3-level scorer. I've heard fantastic things about his preparation, his competitiveness, his ability to knock down open threes. And then you go into, and also I think he's going to be, I really do feel like he's an Alex Caravan clone, but a higher athlete from the perspective. He's a little twitchier, especially as an incoming freshman. And then Ahmad Noel. Hassan Diarra was on, a friend of the program's, not Ahmad Noel, but Hassan Diarra was on our friend of the program, Aaron Torres's podcast, talking about how Ahmad Noel has the heart of a lion and that he is going to be the most competitive kid on UConn's roster. That's a hell of a statement coming from a 5th-year senior to give that to your freshman guard. And we've had Ahmad Noel's dad on the program. We've had Tashid Carr on, a former player himself, who just gave us a glowing process of how he was recruited and how much he loves this staff with Dan and Kamani and Luke and Tom. So I think Ahmad is really going to show out. I think especially with Dan Hurley obviously staying, you're going to see a different fire from some of the freshmen and the transfers in particular, because they've never played for Dan Hurley. And now it's kind of like, okay, he's staying, and it's going to be like what was going to be here is now up here in terms of getting after him. By the way, if you didn't notice, I'm wearing my Breaking Tea, not leaving Dan Hurley shirt. You can check out my link tree and get yourself a Dan Hurley Breaking Tea shirt. I think there's definitely a discount on that, but I'm not sure. And then lastly, Isaiah Abraham. I think, to me, for honest, I've watched a bunch of his highlights. It's so hard to watch high school highlights and go, man, that guy's going to be fantastic in the pros, because so much of high school is you're so much more athletic and so much better than all the players that you're playing in high school. And I'm not saying I was the elite athlete that these guys are, but it's the same thing with me when I played high school tennis. If any of you ever came to one of my matches when I was in high school, or if anybody watches the show that went to Maloney or is in Meriden, I used to try to finish these matches as quickly as possible, because high school tennis wasn't where I was getting the most elite competition. Those were when I was playing junior tournaments on the regional level, national level. And so when I played high school, it was kind of like these guys, same thing. They're playing their high school matches, with the exception of probably Liam McNeely at Monteverde. You know, it's hard to gauge how good of a player Isaiah Abraham is. But what I know from them is they love his length, they love his defensive intensity, and I feel like they can help him. They feel like he can help them to kind of push the players that are incoming sophomores or rising sophomores and really kind of get these guys to the next level. So I'm excited about Isaiah Abraham's length and his ability to defend the ball and potentially be a wing and kind of a lighter power forward. I don't think we're going to be playing very big this year, guys. I think that's one of the biggest weaknesses, but also could be a strength in terms of quickness. We're going to talk about what I'm most looking forward to. Spoiler alert, it's Aiden Mahaney and Liam McNeely and what they're going to bring to the table coming up after this. You're back on Locked On UConn. Aiden Mahaney. I mentioned this a little bit in the last segment. He is, to me, the quintessential Dan Hurley kid. Joey California mixed with Cam Spencer, mixed with Tristan Newton. A combo guard that can shoot it with incredible efficiency when he's open. And some of that dipped last year. We've talked about this in previous programs. His efficiency dipped because he was essentially the offense for St. Mary's. He had some great games against Gonzaga. He also had some really bad games against teams like Pepperdine, right? So, as the competition waned, his ability to kind of keep that consistency is what I think is the biggest concern, if there is one. But I think those concerns are going to be quelled pretty quickly, because he's going to be asked to do things at UConn that he did already at St. Mary's, but also do things that he didn't do at St. Mary's. I think a lot of what we do at UConn is the ability to kind of make reads, and Aiden is the type of processor. I wouldn't put him on Alex Caravan's level yet. Maybe he gets to that point. He's got 2 years to prove it. But he wants to be at that level. He wants to be that processor where he can get a guy in his hip and he's dribbling and kind of do what Cam Spencer did in the title game, which is you have 7'4" Zach Edey coming at you and you kind of give a little head fake and you drop it off for an easy dunk for Donovan Clingan. Those type of things. Or noticing that a guy isn't rotating enough, so you kick it out to Alex Caravan for a 3 or Liam McNeely for a 3. I think that is going to be the interesting thing. The reason why him and Liam are my two, what I'm most looking forward to in the of this team, is because I feel like for me, there may be a lineup where Aiden is playing the 1, where he's the point guard. Liam is the 2. We have Jay Stu at the 3, Alex Caravan at the 4, and Samson Johnson at the 5. So you have literally a bevy of 3-point shooters, and then Samson Johnson as an offensive rebounder. Those are the types of lineup combinations that I'm looking forward to. I told David Borges that I'm doing kind of mad scientist, like what are some combinations that we can look forward to with this team, and there's so many. And it's a great time to talk about this really quick. While we have, I think it was 40 something people watching live, and then this will be aired later on a recording. I'm launching a insider program for Locked On UConn. I know some of you are into that, and I think what I want to do with that is give my thoughts, send them to you. You can obviously interact with me kind of on a offline personal level, and we can kind of create this online community. You can pay for it or you don't have to pay for it. I think there's not going to be anything that I say on this show is not going to be like hidden from you, but we may have some insider conversations on game day, have special giveaways for people that want to do it. I definitely want to do some things. We just talked about donating to Bleeding Blue for Good. Definitely want to contribute to the NIL with your help. Maybe doing some special events. I obviously unfortunately don't live in Connecticut anymore, but I definitely want to come to the state every once in a while to go to games. Also, thinking about doing some giveaways. We have a UConn great in my backyard who I had on the show, Ricky Moore. We're going to do some things with him as well. So I haven't asked him yet. So I would imagine he's been great with me. So I would imagine he'd be okay with doing a show where, maybe we'd sign some items and give them away to folks in the insider program. So anyway, that's here nor there. If you're interested in that, definitely reach out and I'll get you some information as time goes on. Before we end this show, the one thing I will tell you guys on a free for all Friday, let's see if I have any comments in the live. We talked about, the comments I have here is about Samson Johnson and how he gets into foul trouble from Bill Meehan. Bill, I will give you this one thing to say before I go. This was all a positive show. We weren't talking about the negatives of folks, but one of the reasons why they brought in Terrace Reed is he averaged less than 3 fouls a game at Michigan. So they felt like he was the type of kid that is not going to be a foul trouble kid. I think you're going to see more Reed Jr. on the floor more than you see Samson Johnson, but I definitely think Samson Johnson is going to be a huge part and he needs to be if we're going to three-peat this year. So hopefully he works on that. Maybe maybe him gaining a little extra weight is going to help with that, where he doesn't get pushed around as much, and he's not able to be moved as much as you saw last year. That's it, guys. Like I'm so looking forward to the season. I really feel like we're in a great position. I'm going to continue this show day in and day out with your support. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done. I'm looking forward to diving into Stars of Stores later this month into July, so that we can cover. I feel like a couple guys that we have is Joey Calcaterra, Ryan Boatwright, Jeff Adrian, DeAndre Daniels, RJ Cole. Coached by one of the greatest of all time, Chris Smith and his son, as well as Tyler Olander. So again, thanks Mark D'Amelia for putting that together. And I hear they're getting fantastic accommodations, first class organization all the way, Stars of Stores. It's a tough tournament. I hope that we're able to be very competitive and can take home a TBT title. But before we go, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's now available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, Stay connected. Make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.